Hey, everybody, it's Mark Pattison, former NFL player trying to climb the seven summits. I've got 6 down, 1 to go. Mount Everest coming up this next April. I'm jacked up about that because I'm training like a bear every single day. And the other, I think it was last week, and I was on Facebook, and this guy, this old friend of mine, hadn't seen him in 30 years, pops up on my screen. And it was awesome to see his face. He used to be an absolute rock star back in the day when he and I attended the University of Washington, and where I played on the football team. Mike was a decathlete, and not just an average one, a very talented one. And we'll get into that. But first of all, let me introduce my guest today, Mike Ramos. How you doing, Mike?
I am doing fantastic.
Well, it sounds like you are, and I know there's been a lot of time that has elapsed between when you and I last, I think, saw each other in a Seahawk camp and our college days together, running around and working out in the weight room, and then I'd be on the football field and you'd be doing your thing on the track, which in those days surrounded the football field at the University of Washington, but. I want to start off and talk about your days as a decathlete, and just like talking, I guess, about my football days. I mean, those a lot of those days were 20, 30 years ago, and so it's kind of in the past. But I think like a lot of these things, they lead up to where we are today. There's a pattern, and all these things are connected. So. First of all, just to tee things up, I know that you were probably highly recruited to come to the University of Washington, and decathlete, of course, 10 individual, really difficult events done, and I think it's over a 2-day period. But you were on the USA team for 10 years. So tell me about that path, that journey that kind of led you down that path, and on the USA team, and ultimately trying to make a bid for the Olympics.
Well, it all started in high school. I was a 3-sport athlete. My first love was football, and it just kind of turned out that I was just really good at track. So that was pretty much my avenue. I did 5 events in high school and did well there, state champion in pretty much everything I did, and it was kind of a natural progression for me to get into the decathlon. It was funny. I was actually headed to UCLA. And I went to a track camp in Little Sealy Lake, Montana, which has got seriously 50 people in it. But this coach was there from the University of Washington, and his name is Ken Shannon. And he shows up to this track camp, and there was 5 national class coaches there. And it's just a little camp, and people from the Northwest go to this camp, and it was headed by a guy named Dr. Peterson, who was out of Seattle, and he had a place in Montana, and he thought it'd be a great idea to have this track camp in Sealy Lake. Anyway, long story short, Ken Shannon's at the same camp I'm at. I'm headed to UCLA, and he goes, no, you're coming to the UW. So I just really hit it off with Ken, broke off my engagement with UCLA, ended up at the UW with Ken Shannon, and the rest is pretty much history as far as how I got there.
Yeah, I mean, it is history, but I want to get into that history. And when we're talking about the decathlon, we're talking about the 100, the long jump, the shot put, the high jump, 400 meters, pole vault, 1,500 meter run. Did I get them all in there? Discus, javelin. I mean, there's.
Well, yeah. So you missed the hurdles, discus, javelin. So there's 10 altogether. It runs over a 2-day period.
Yeah. So okay. So you end up going to the University of Washington, and like all, things, I mean, I was talented in football, but I was not developed, and you were talented in these sports, but you had a long way to go. And where is it in the arc of your career as it relates to it being an athlete? Did it seem like you were going to start taking that next step, and that you weren't just average, you were really exceptional, and you could see that you were talented and there could be a path to the Olympics?
Well, it happened. So in high school, I was good, but I had a long way to go. My freshman year at the University of Washington, squeaked into nationals by getting, I believe, 3rd in the Pac-10 championships, which was, 3rd in the Pac-10 championships as a freshman was kind of a big deal. And then I get to, so that qualified me for nationals. And at nationals, as a freshman, I ended up being third at nationals, which was huge. And that, there's not that many scholarships in track and field. So, I come into the University of Washington on a half ride. Ken Shannon tells me before the national meet that I have to place in the top 5 at nationals to get a full ride. So he wasn't expecting it. I think I was probably the only one that was expecting it. And as a freshman, I ended up getting third at the NC2As, which was a big deal and really kind of catapulted me forward. Physically, I still had a long way to go, but that was a really big mental thing for me, knowing that I could compete with anybody at any school at that time as a freshman. And I was fortunate enough to have a partner named Steve Erickson that was, I believe he was like 7th as a freshman at nationals. So we have 2 national class caliber decathletes at the same school, which was, I couldn't ask for a better situation because we were competing every day, 10 events in practice every single day. And I had the best situation in the country as far as development with a guy like that with me.
That's awesome. And all those things. And look, I'm literally like dusting off the cobwebs in my brain right now. And I don't know why, I'm probably not accurate on this, but it was your best event pole vault?
Well, how about if I just give you a rundown kind of what I did, where I was ranked, how I ended up through my career, just kind of my credentials. Does that work?
Yeah, go for it.
I don't usually talk about this, but I will for this.
Yeah.
But so anyway, as a freshman, I ended up third in the NC2As. The next year I was second in the NC2As, won the NC2A my third year, and I set the NC2A record, which stood for 14 years. My senior year was Olympic year, so took the NCAAs off, didn't actually go. I was the first alternate in 1984. I was first in the U.S. in 85, 86, and 87 in the decathlon. 88, I was ranked going first. I was ranked first going into that meet. Also in 1987, I was ranked 5th in the world. So that's kind of my credentials as far as that go. My story as far as what happened to me was in 88, the trials were in Indianapolis. Everything was going great. I was leading the trials. It ended up raining in Indy, and we moved the high jump indoors, and I struggled with the high jump being indoors. I'm a 7'2" high jumper. So I come in at 6'6", where I normally do. I didn't make the transition to coming indoors. There were some weird lines on the floor and stuff, which I definitely should have navigated, but for some reason didn't, and ended up missing 3 attempts in the high jump, which put me out of the competition. So that was the end of my Olympic bid. I left all my stuff in Indianapolis, my poles, my shoes, my shots, and I had a friend who actually played with you, J.E. Kirkpatrick. I was, just demoralized at that time. And so I left all my stuff in Indy, and J.E. picked it all up and brought it to Ohio to his house. And I came home to Montana and sat here sulking. And my dad finally said, you need to get up and do something. And the U.S. team called, and there was a meet in Canada. It was a USA-Canada duel. And I reluctantly went up and competed. And this was about 3 weeks after the trials and about 3 weeks before the Olympic Games. So I went to Canada, competed in that, won that, beat a guy named Dave Steen, who ended up third at the Olympics 2.5 weeks later. So that's kind of my story as it goes. And it was kind of it was a tough deal for me, but everything happens for a reason. I wouldn't be where I'm at today, without those things happening. Though it was a tough pill, I wouldn't change anything.
Well, look, I like, this is me on my side of the fence, right? And I would say for sure you would have changed things. You would have changed that, there would have been a different result in Indianapolis. And I can't imagine. This is the one thing I don't think a lot of people understand is that when you are an athlete and a big time athlete like you were, number one in the States, had won all these different accolades and tournaments or meets. I'm sorry. And for myself, 100% focused in on football and trying to make the NFL. and trying to stand out at the University of Washington. And then for some reason, whether it's injury or some other event that comes into your life, and you don't achieve that goal when you basically spent years and years and years and years and years, 5, 10 years, with that singular goal in mind with success, and you don't meet it, it's just incredibly disappointing. And I can only begin to imagine what that must have been like of, just all out disappointment. I ran into an NFL quarterback yesterday here in Sun Valley, and he won the Heisman Trophy, Carson Palmer. And so I was talking to him and I said, "Hey Carson, so what are you doing now? Are you hiking or fishing or doing anything?" He goes, he has not been in a gym since he left the NFL after being beat up and battered and everything else. And it was just surprising to
Yeah.
me. But again, it's just that whole mindset where it's so singly focused on the end result and the goal that when it doesn't happen, you're just, that part of your brain just shuts down, and you go in a completely different direction.
Yeah, I'm not telling you that it wasn't tough for me, because it was the hardest thing that I ever had to deal with at the time. But I'm telling you, through disappointment, through heartache, there's growth. And, I didn't realize the growth for many, many, many years. And I didn't realize why that happened. But I'm a believer in the universe hands you things and you deal with them and you grow from them. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't have a choice. Those were the cards I was dealt. Well, I wasn't going to sit and not do anything about it. So through that, I'm happy for the growth that I've obtained. And a lot of the growth didn't come for a long time. It took me a ton of time to figure out what the meaning of all that was. And I'm starting to realize it, a lot of it, even now. So when I said I wouldn't change a thing, of course, that was a huge disappointment. But in my world, things happen for a reason, and I fully get it, and I've fully grown from it, and I'm continuing to grow. So it is what it is. I wouldn't be here in Montana. I wouldn't have my family. I have a successful business. My life is really good. I didn't need that to have a wonderful, wonderful life.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get it. And it is what it is. I think you said those words. And, my story is I ran into a wall a number of years ago. And at the time you're saying, why me, and how did this happen? And you're going through that whole exercise. And when you are processing information like that and experiences like that and situations like that, it's hard to see the other side because you're stuck in the middle of it. And I think you said it perfectly. The only way to get on the other side is to go through it, embrace it, and in some cases step into the fear. I certainly would not have started climbing mountains. Big boy mountains around the world with Everest coming up, if I hadn't gone through my adversity, my difficulties, stumbling all over myself, what to do, how to pick myself up, which I now look back and say, this has been the biggest blessing starting this podcast. Again, this podcast is called Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. And finding their way is just what we're talking about. And and for me to be on this side of the mic and talk to guys like you who have been like literally at the top of the podium and been knocked off, and then you're literally on your back going, okay, what am I going to do? But you can't see it in the moment, and it just takes years and years and years. And now you come back with all this great wisdom. So I want to transition, Mike. So and before the pod, full disclosure to the listener, that you and I have not talked in a long time, and so I literally 30 years. And so I happened to see this post on Facebook the other day, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I wonder what Mike's life has been like since we last saw each other. And the reason why I asked that question is because I saw that you made a post, very brave, to stand up on Facebook and say to the world, like cheering, toasting, celebrating that you were celebrating your 1 year of sobriety. So I want to ask you, get into that. What happened? And, congratulations. It's been 1 year. That's so awesome. But how did that get to that point?
Well, it wasn't like I was a stumbling drunk and down on my, the whole thing. Alcohol wasn't working for me anymore. It
Yeah.
wasn't working for my relationship, wasn't working for my business, wasn't working for me. It was one of those things and I'm realizing now that the substance, I like to gamble. I like to do those things where, wear a mask, where something, I was masking, I was self-medicating. And a lot of the self-medication comes back to the failures that I've had in my life, the big one, which I kind of like to call it. So I think that's where a lot of that came from. I had a lot of depression with the drinking. I was questioning everything about, I'd have a hangover and I'd be questioning everything about my life. Was I a good father? Was I, all these things that I shouldn't have been questioning.
Yeah.
And, I went on a fishing trip and I ended up drinking too much, gambling that night. And I was driving home the next day and I was hungover and I was depressed. And I just looked in the mirror and I said, never again. I'm never going to feel like this again. And that was October 9th of last year. And this is where I'm at. It's been the best year of my life, hands down, sober, not gambling, the whole thing. It's been incredible. And it's launched me on this spiritual path that is, it's second to none. I'm waking up to so many things, and my relationships are better. My business is better. My life is better. Everything around me is better. And Mark, it's absolutely incredible.
Why do you think it got to that point? Like you said, you were on this fishing trip, and it was probably one of those nights that went wrong at some level, way to an excess that you never thought at the beginning of the fishing trip that it would have got to, but almost like it was the breaking point that you actually needed to kind of the wake up call, maybe to kind of see the other light. And by the way, congratulations, where you have your breakthrough moment, and maybe that was it when you're looking in the mirror, and then the recognition of looking back a year, like what and how amazing things have become, even more magnified and amplified in the way that you're living life, and the good things that have come from it.
Yeah, it's really incredible. I'm able to, instead of having a feeling and masking it, I'm able to get through that feeling and feel that feeling and know what it feels like to feel that, and move on through, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you just become, kind of a tougher, better person. It's really been an incredible experience for me.
Yeah.
And I've grown more in the last year than I had in the previous 30. I can tell you that hands down.
So something, again, I want to like reset this a little bit for the audience. So my impression of you're this kid that grew up in Montana. So Montanans in general are these, rough and tumble, dudes. All the guys I've met have been awesome, but you grow up, it's harsh winters and a lot of fires up there in Missoula during the summer, but a lover of outdoors and everything else. But you're built, you're solid, you're a tough guy. And the thing that I found that was interesting is that what I'd been missing out in so much of my life, and I didn't figure this out till I was 50, and you and I are about the same age, was this whole world about the more vulnerable that I was, and just sharing and being open and just like, what, I don't care what anybody thinks, this is who I am. Like the more and more gifts have come my way. And as a matter of fact, something
Absolutely.
that I never even figured out, like I've told a blockhead, is that the more that I was open to sharing what was going on and my struggles and everything else, turned around that many of these people that I was confiding in were turning around and saying, you know what, me too. And it's just like, all of a sudden, it's just like you don't feel like you're alone out there in the world.
Well, so just, just kind of quick. So Montana is a drinking culture. It just is, that's what you do. When it's cold outside, you're inside, you're drinking, you're watching a football game, you're doing whatever. But it was the culture. My dad was a big drinker. Everybody around me was drinking. Everything revolved around drinking. So, that was kind of the name of the game. But in what you said about the vulnerable piece, it's incredible when you get to, it's an awesome place to be where you can just lay your stuff out there and be okay with it. And the rewards that you get from that are absolutely incredible. They're incredible. When I made that post, I mean, I get Mark Pattison to call me 30 years later and say, "What's up?"
Yeah.
You start to connect with people on a different level. I probably have had, there was over like 200 comments on that post, which is incredible for the small number of people that I'm involved with. So, but I've had probably 20 people call me, write me, email me, and saying, "How did you do it? You inspired me." And that is so worth it. It gives me goosebumps right now, just knowing that maybe you've affected somebody else's life in a positive way, just by being you, which is really cool.
Well, again, going back to this podcast, it has served up a forum for a lot of people to draw inspiration because of the struggles that other people have gone through, I've gone through, that have helped at least see this thing called perspective, that other people have these struggles too, no matter who they are. And, they've like figured out a way to overcome these things and step forward. And great things have happened to them, like they're happening with you right now. So one of the things that you mentioned as well, Mike, is that you've got a successful business. And so the one thing I did read, and by the way, I didn't tell you this, or you don't know this about me, but I built a ranch outside of Bozeman, Montana, had for a number of years, sold it about 3 years ago. But the Circle P, so I know the Montana culture well and love it. And I used to cruise through Missoula all the time, not knowing that you're there. But the one place that I never went to was Paul's Pancake Parlor since 1963. I want to hear more about this place that you now own.
Oh, it's an incredible little place. It's a little mom and pop. It's 120 seats. It's been there since 1963. This guy named Paul Girding started it. My mom was his right-hand woman, I guess. Starting in 63, she ran the place for him until I would say probably around 80 or so, and then he retired, sold it to her, and then she had it for 19 years, and then in 98 she sold it to me. So this is my 21st, almost my 22nd year doing it. It's a pancake joint. We do 3 meals, so we got burgers, we got steaks, we've got everything, and it's an ongoing concern. I mean, it's a popular little place, thank the Lord. And, we try to do the best we can. And so far it's just been a godsend for me and my family.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. There's a place in Manhattan Beach. So I was in California. It seems like half my life. But there's a place in Manhattan Beach called Uncle Bill's Pancake House. And that right now is like, it's got the gold medal as it relates to me and my taste buds. But I have now challenging myself to head up to Missoula to go to Paul's Pancake Parlor and sample these sourdough pancakes, which I guess are world famous.
Well, that starter, when I bought it, was around for 95 years. So add 21 to that. So, we have 17 varieties of pancakes. We're pretty much known for breakfast, but like I said, we do 3 meals. Everything in our place is homemade. There's nothing out of a can. So it's pretty labor intensive. We got, a lot of prep cooks, and we do that whole deal, but it seems to be working. I buy the best ingredients I possibly can. And it's just been really popular, and it's been great.
That is awesome. So let's take this thing full circle. And a year ago, October 8th, I think you said, you celebrated your 1 year of sobriety. 9th, you celebrated your 1 year of sobriety. Mm-hmm. And now relationships, your business, everything else is humming at a pace that you never thought, possible, which is great. As kind of I'm closing my eyes for a minute, and I have been in a number of different mom and pops, and when you get the owner that comes around and everybody knows them, you're the local hero and all those different things, it must be so gratifying for you to be able to really connect with the community in a way that you never have been able to do that before.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's, everywhere I go, people kind of know who I am. And it's so funny because people used to know me for one thing, and now they know me for another. The younger generation, they have no idea. I used to put some cleats on and run around a track and grab a pole and jump over, over a stick. now they know me as the Pancake guy. So it's been interesting, and it's just been a lot of fun.
That's great. And that those cleats, your uniform, everything else that you left in Indianapolis that JE took back to Ohio, had they found their way back to your house?
Yes. And I kind of left that part of the story out. When JE took all my stuff, he sent it all back to me in Montana, so I could go to that meeting in Canada. I kind of left that part out. I was getting all excited about the story. I left that part out. But JE was kind of a godsend because he got all that stuff for me, which was thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment, which I could have never replaced at the time before I went to the meet in Canada. So I left that part out, Mark. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. So, there's a quote that I have spit out of my mouth now for years and years and years. There's a quarterback coach that we used to have at the University of Washington, Ray E. Dorr. Unfortunately, passed away many years ago, but he used to always say something that passed on to my kids. It takes a little more to make a champion. And, to you, I know that there's one guy that really understands what that means. It's you. Again, what you did back on the decathlon, and then having to overcome your own, I don't know if they're ghosts or whatever that you want to call those things, but to face up to it at this age and not trying to repeat history of things that have happened in the past just because you live in that type of culture. And now to be in Missoula, healthy, alive, well, thriving, business going great, and going through that, it's really inspiring. It's really inspiring that ultimately it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and sometimes we take a lot of zigzag. And it's how we end up and get there at the end of the day, which is the most important thing.
Absolutely, and you're right. I mean, it's a journey. This whole thing is a journey, and this is a new chapter in my life. And, I've wondered, why I was put on this earth and what my purpose was. And, I've done all those questions that I'm sure a lot of people do, but I know why I'm on this earth now. And I'm waking up, and it's really, really cool. I've got some really good mentors that have been helping me out with the spiritual side of it. And, I'm put on this earth to help. And, I've been kind of mentoring a lot of people. I've been coaching a few people. I've been doing this thing where I get to give back. And it's just so awesome. I'm not even close to being where I need to be. But the things that I am learning, I'm able to articulate to people that need help. And it's been really cool to see. And in that process, I mean, it's so fulfilling for me, and it's so good for me as well. So it's been a great journey, and I've got a long ways to go. So I'm just happy to be on the road that I am.
Yeah, I love that. I really feel like it's your time. And when we're younger, I think you don't have the wisdom. And then you said this perfectly earlier, which is you really needed to go through the struggle and battle your way back, and to be where you are today, to give that perspective to others that might need it right now, that are going through their own thing. And so that's a gift to the universe. And from my side, certainly appreciate what you're doing and where you've come. And kind of in closing here, it's just, again, another little blessing from social media is it's so great that we are connected in that way. And that post,
Yes.
prompted us to do a podcast together and reconnect this friendship. And I'm absolutely 100% going to make the effort to get to Missoula, to go to Paul's Pancake Parlor since 1963 with the greatest pancakes on the planet, apparently better than Uncle Bill's in Manhattan Beach. Little plug. So if anybody wants to find you, they can find you there, and I assume on Facebook, and we'll put those things in the show notes at the very end. So Mike, look, I really appreciate you're a stand-up guy, and again, as I said, you're a gift to the world, and thank you so much for being on this pod.
Hey, thanks, Mark. And, I didn't congratulate you on the journey that you're on. I mean, this is incredible. I didn't know this about you either. So, man, kudos to you. That is some awesome stuff. And I've been watching, some of the mountain climbing stuff. And I'm like, that's not easy stuff. And you have to train for it. And the people that don't train for it end up not living very long, it sounds like. So kudos to you. And that's a really, really cool thing.
Well, it's a great motivator, and as much as a motivator, I have, people meditate, I guess, in different ways, and because I am in the mountains every day, it's really been my meditation to solving problems and thinking through issues and what I'm going to do, and trying to be more grateful and having that peace and serenity with nature. And my community is a little bit smaller than yours in Missoula, but still, kind of right at the foot of the mountains, and so you get that, and it's been an absolute blessing. So it's lots of things to be grateful for and thankful for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Listen, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you coming on. You've been awesome, and best of luck with you going forward.
Oh man, it's been my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. It's good to, visit that old stuff occasionally. I haven't talked about all that for a long time, and it kind of felt good. It almost felt a little cleansing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, awesome. All right, everybody. He is Mike Ramos. Thank you so much. Hey, and thank you so much for listening to the Find Your Summit podcast. We are so glad to have you along for this journey. And if you enjoy the show, please tell a friend, share it on iTunes, spread it to the planet. We're looking to broadcast this to every person that is out there because, as you know, everybody has their own summit that they're going after. Okay, if you're looking to follow my journey, you can find that through my social links on markpattisonnfl.com. That's Mark, M-A-R-K, Pattison, P-A-T-T-I-S-O-N, NFL.com. So, until the next podcast, just remember, clear eyes, full hearts, and remember, it takes a little more to make a champion, so make it happen. Thank you. Bye.